I can't hear anything.
We can hear you, Phil.
Ah, good. I just heard that.
Sorry, our mics were off. Debbie, are we good to go? Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Mount Buelos Altos High School District Board of Trustees to order at almost 7:15, and apologies for the delay out of closed session. It is October 12th. Welcome, it's Tuesday. And I will first quickly note that all trustees are present. We had hoped to have Dr. Felice with us this evening in person, but he and his wife have been deemed close contacts with a COVID exposure. So he is staying home and keeping all of us safe. So we've got him online this evening instead. So hello, Phil, welcome. And hope that you continue to feel well.
Thank you.
And would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America,
The Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, but should I mention that other part?
Yes, that would be great.
Before we did closed session, we actually moved item 15.10 to the opening of the meeting an hour or so ago. And that is because that is the state local agencies post-conferencing resolution, which allows for things like still to be on Zoom instead of in person. And the legislature has said that we can do that, but have to approve it every month to continue doing that if we choose to do so. So we approve that so we can continue to do so. So we would need to, I move that we approve the remaining agenda, which will leave consolidated motion having 15.1 through 15.9 left, and the rest of the agenda as posted.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm giving it to Sanjay. So we have a motion from Catherine and a second from Sanjay to approve the agenda as presented with the note about item 1510 from earlier. Alpha, would you like to approve the agenda? Thank you. Riley? I agree. Thank you. And back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. And items 8.123, no action was taken in closed session, so there's nothing to report out. Which takes us to item 9.1, which is our resolution number 22-9, recognition of administrators. And Dr. Meyer might want to say something about her team, but I'm going to open with just a few words about Dr. Meyer and her team. We have an amazing crew at MBLA, and I'm so grateful to all of you for all the work that you do. We have key leadership in the audience with us tonight. I'm looking at Wynn, I'm looking at Gary. I know that Mike Jimenez was unable to be here, but our principals are key. And we know that you put in far more hours than a normal 40-hour work week on every single week. And we are grateful, very, very grateful. So if you want to add a few words, Dr. Meyer, you may, but and unlike normal resolutions, the board is going to read this to you rather than having you read your own.
Thank you.
I just have to say that when times are difficult, it really shows you people's true mettle. And we couldn't have had a more difficult last 2 years. The district office team is recognized throughout the county as being the strongest team certainly I've worked with. Our principals, there's a reason that we have such respect and honor for our principals, but it has to be one of the hardest jobs in the organization. So thank you to our principals for what they do all day, every day, and weekends. Our management team, whether it's special ed, we see Gary College Now, and all of those who make it work behind the scenes are humble and talented. And so I feel very fortunate, and thank you very much. And thank you to this great team right here. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start through the whereases, and then there's a number of them. So Phil, my line of sight is that I'll go down our table and I'll hit Riley and Abba, and then you'll have the next one after Abba, and we can loop back through to me again. Okay. So whereas leadership matters for California's public education system and the more than 6 million students it serves.
Whereas school administrators are passionate, lifelong learners who believe in the value of quality public education. And
whereas the title school administrator is a broad term used to define many education leadership posts: superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, special education and adult education leaders, curriculum and assessment leaders, school business officials, classified educational leaders, and other school district employees are considered administrators. And
whereas providing quality service for student success is paramount for the profession. And
whereas most school administrators begin their careers as teachers. The average administrator has served in public education for more than a decade. Most of California's superintendents have served in education for more than 20 years. Such experience is beneficial in their work to effectively and efficiently lead public education and improve student achievement. And
whereas public schools operate with lean management systems. Across the nation, public schools employ fewer managers and supervisors than most public and private sector industries, including transportation, food service, manufacturing, utilities, construction, publishing, and public administration. And
whereas school leaders depend on a network of support from school communities, fellow administrators, teachers, parents, students, businesses, community members, board trustees, colleges and universities, community and faith-based organizations, elected officials, and district and county staff and resources to promote ongoing student achievement and school success. And
whereas research shows great schools are led by great principals and great districts are led by great superintendents. These site leaders are supported by extensive administrative networks throughout the state. And
whereas the future of California's public education system depends upon the quality of its leadership.
whereas the state of California has declared the second full week of October as the week of the school administrator in Education Code 44015.1. And
whereas the future of California's public education system depends upon the quality of its leadership, now therefore
be it resolved that the Mountain View Los Altos Board of Trustees extends its sincere appreciation, and that all school leaders be commended for the contributions they make to successful student achievement.
passed and adopted by the Mountain View Los Altos High School District Board of Trustees at its meeting of October 12th, 2021.
thank you. And we didn't actually take a motion to vote. We will do that now, but thank you everybody for helping to read that. I didn't want Dr. Meyer to read it.
So I move that we approve resolution number 22-9.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion from Catherine and Debbie that we approve resolution number 22-9. Abba, how would you like to vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Riley?
I agree.
Thank you. Back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 5-0. Thank you. Yeah, yes, Catherine.
I would like to say or repeat what Fiona already said about the quality of our administration and leadership, and that we are so proud to be the trustees of such a high-performing privileged and grateful to be the trustees of such a high-performing district.
Yeah, I know, we're just gonna clap. Thanks. Okay, so, board member reports. Yeah, go ahead.
So I just have one, just remind everyone, this is Compassion Week here in Mountain View, Los Altos. So it's an opportunity for us in the community to volunteer at any nonprofits or any organizations you would like to volunteer for. And also Hope's Corner, which I think most of you know is something that I'm very passionate about. And it's basically a soup kitchen in Mountain View. And we've just this month opened it up to volunteers to be able to sign up on the website and be able to volunteer. We serve a hot breakfast and a bag lunch every Wednesday and Saturday morning. And so that's one opportunity to volunteer if you would like to. So just want to get that.
Great. Thank you. Sanjay spends a ton of time with Hope's Corner. Thank you, Sanjay, for doing that. That's one, I know that you've always done that with your kids as well. Anybody else, other board updates? No, okay. Quick comment. Thank you all for coming to Los Altos Lights. I'm guessing Riley may talk about that a little bit, but
There was one other board update I wanted to, if I can go back. So this is, so Mike, am I okay to talk about the auction one, that email? So there was, I don't know, so this is more for probably the people of Los Altos. Los Altos Rotary, they had a fundraiser this last, I think, month or 2 months. I'm not sure how long it lasted, but basically they had bought these ceramic bears, I think 43 or 48 of them, and they had different artists paint them and decorate them, design them throughout the city of Los Altos. And one of the bears was designed by a Los Altos High School student and painted it into the Los Altos High School colors. And a family in Los Altos won that auction bid to buy that specific bear, and they're going to donate it to our district and actually have it at Los Altos High School. So we're just very happy to see that. So don't have any pictures share. Hopefully we'll be able to get some pictures of that bear and share that. So that'd be great. So
Very fun.
Wanted to get that up there. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So, and then the second thing I was going to say is just the Mountain View High School homecoming parade was very fun. Nellie and I got to ride in a car with one of the homecoming court members, which was fun. We did the block and a half and around the corner. It was perfect. So, okay, that's it from us. I will turn it over to Ava. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the main thing that happened at Mountain View this past weekend was homecoming, and that this past week as well. It was crazy busy, but a lot happened and it was all good things. So starting off with the beginning of the week on Monday, the Spirit Day was Neon Day, and we had our first 2 outdoor rallies of the school year. So they were on the football field, and we split the school into 2 during their second period, and we had our rallies. We had performances from dance spectrum, Japanese classes, cheerleading. We had a tug of war between JV and varsity football. And we also had the homecoming court dance that they put together, and then their introductions to the school for the voting that would take place later on in the week. So there's a lot of positives. One negative thing was that we had like issues with the sound system. So it was like a battle that ASB had to overcome. And then on Tuesday, it was Decades Day for Spirit. The homecoming court had a paint twister activity in the quad during lunch, just to have bonding for them and get to know each other. And then on Wednesday, the Spirit Day was Space Cowboys, and we didn't have an activity that day. But on Thursday, we had Pajama Day, and that was float night for all the class cabinets. So it's basically where everyone like gets together and each class builds their own float, and they have a theme. And the winner was the seniors, and their theme was a rocket ship. And one thing about that was that the sophomore and the junior floats actually got partially torn down by the wind the night before. They were stored in the district parking lot. So that was another thing that we had to deal with. And then Friday was a super busy day. It was pink out for Spirit, and it was minimum day with the homecoming picnic on the lacrosse field after school. It was where clubs sold food to fundraise. And then shortly after that, we had the homecoming parade, which included lots of school groups like marching band, cheer, dance spectrum, football, girls volleyball, and water polo, the Mexican folklorial dance club. And then the class floats were carried on trailers by trucks during the parade, and the members of homecoming court were in the vintage cars. So yeah, that was really cool. That was definitely a highlight of the week. And then that night we had the football game. It was pink out for breast cancer awareness, and the Spartans won against Santa Clara in both JV and varsity. And we again had performances from dance spectrum and cheerleading during halftime. And then our homecoming court was crowned, and we actually had 3 winners instead of 2 because there was a tie. So our 3 winners were Philip Dorkin, Hania Gomez Diaz, and Archer Date. So yeah, that was really cool. And then Saturday we had our dance, and that was from 7 to 10. It was outside, it was masked, and it was on the lacrosse field. And we actually had like a dance floor, so there's people on the grass and also on the dance floor. We had snacks and drinks, round tables for seating. We had a photo booth. And it was really great to see everyone out there having a good time. We actually had over 900 students purchase tickets. So it's, I believe, the biggest turnout for a dance. And yeah, a couple of other things going on. ASB is hosting their blood drive this Friday. It's from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the small gym, and students 16 or older can donate blood with parent consent, and we're partnering with the Stanford Blood Center for that. Tomorrow we have the pre-SAT and SAT for everyone, or not everyone, but most of the students. And then last weekend we had choir camp for the choir program, and choir camp allows students to get to know each other on a different level and become a more cohesive team and community. So it was a 4-day choir camp to kick off the year for choir, and they're now working towards concerts during the holidays, and then a tour in the spring where they're going to go to Switzerland and Hawaii. So yeah.
Okay, so our week was not as spirit packed as Mountain Beach because our homecoming isn't till the end of October. But we are planning for it right now. Our homecoming theme is fantasy, which is basically can be a lot of things as we're finding out as we're going through it. And then our homecoming court was announced. We're doing top 20 seniors. And then in regards to sports, our athletics is doing the pumpkin patch fundraiser that started last week. And so that's on the track. And so if any of you guys need pumpkins or want pumpkins, that would be a great place to buy them because it raises money for our athletic team. And our cross country team got to do an overnight trip this past weekend in Clovis. And the girls team broke the school record by over 3 minutes, which was super cool because this course has been run on since 1981. And so that was a big achievement by the team. Our football team won their first 2 league games, and our girls tennis and water polo teams have been doing really well. As you guys all probably know, we had kind of a crazy week in regards to threats and evacuations and things like that. So we had our bomb threat, which you guys probably have already talked about a lot. So I don't need to really go into details on that, but that happened. And I know there are a lot of mixed reviews, but in general, the students were happy with the organization of it. They just felt like there's a little bit of miscommunication, but obviously everyone was kind of confused, and then the police kind of took it over, so it wasn't really the administration that was in charge of that. A really cool thing that happened last week was Mamma Mia was announced as our school musical, and there was a huge crowd that gathered in the quad, and they were waiting with, they're all anticipating what the musical is going to be, and then they announced it with some songs, and everyone started dancing and like clapping and cheering, and so that was really cool. Our Broken Box acting company is going to perform Alice in Wonderland soon, so they have shows coming up. We have an author that is coming to school this Friday, and she's going to be talking in the library during ACT, just about writing and then being an author, and then lots of different kids can come and listen to her. We had a choir concert, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and I heard that went really well, and they've been working really hard on that. And I know it was tough because one of their last days before the concert was the day of the bomb fit, so they had to cut out one of their songs. But I heard that the choir concert did go really well. And so yeah, that's kind of everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks.
Did you both get a homework-free weekend this weekend, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that was
yeah, go ahead, Catherine, and then I think Phil has a question.
Oh, her name is Maggie Tokuda Hall.
Phil, did I see your hand up? Do you have a question? No, okay. Thank you both. And Dr. Meyer, we're on to item 12.1.
All right, thank you. I don't know if I can do all of those activities justice, so we may need a special homecoming edition. But I did want to start out by sharing that I agree that the staff and the students at Los Altos, under challenging circumstances, did a great job a week and a half ago. So I did want to note that. But on to some of the fun things that we were able to do. This is a picture celebrating the lights on ceremony that we had at Los Altos, and I think it brought luck to the campus. As I hear a victory with JV and varsity. So here you can see we have our board members who are here: Sanjay Deve, Fiona Walter, Catherine Vonnegut, Debbie Torok, and we have Nisa Flagor, the mayor of Los Altos was there. We have former board member Joe Mitchner, and we also have Mike Matheson, who is our associate superintendent of business, and Wynn Satterwhite, who is there, who helped us put the whole thing together. So kind of a celebratory picture, and it was a lot of fun. Also want to share Friday Night Lights as we're looking at the lights at both of our campuses. That the homecoming festivities were extremely fun, including the parade, and really look forward to that every year. Saw in the back here the wind, how it had attacked the two floats, but also saw the juniors and sophomores and putting it back together, which and they did a great job. Some other things that have been going on. This is inside one of our art classes, and we talk a lot about and should talk a lot about our core academics. And tonight we will hear a presentation on mathematics. But a course that I think always relates beautifully to mathematics is art and the dimensions and the proportions. And so really our goal is to make sure that our classes support each other. And speaking of support, this is a photo. One of the things that I've been enjoying doing over the last month is visiting a variety of different classes. So last week I visited the ambassadors at Mountain View High School and the student community leaders at Los Altos High School. And so as I'm going around, I'm seeing some common themes that I want to bring to a future board meeting to discuss ideas around wellness, academic challenge, school events, and things that we can consider as we work to continuously improve MVLA. So this particular photo is from the student community leaders, and what they did is they put this up on the campus of Los Altos, and they asked students to, at the top, kind of define how they were doing on the outside, and then share below the line some of the things that were going on as well. So it was a great way to start talking about how they were doing, how they were coping with the return, and how things are going in general. As things are going in general, we're very fortunate to return to some of our annual traditions. I love this one because it is the band edition, and you can see the senior sunrise here at Los Altos High School. Two things to note: 55 degrees for one, and then also 747. And two things I like to avoid, but can't always avoid. Especially the 55 degrees. I can't avoid 747. Speaking of other positive things that have been going on, we've spoken a little bit, and we'll continue to discuss the green team. And the green team at Los Altos High School, and I believe in our PTSA meeting, I caught our principal, who carries the plaque around with her of the recognition, but we are very proud. And here you can see Assistant Principal Galen Rosenberg, and you can see Dia Gupta, who is a member of the Green Team, but also the sister of one of the authors of the proposal, and Anna Eshu, who is our representative from this area, and they're there visiting her in Washington, D.C., where they received that award. So yeah, I think we mentioned just a handful of districts within California received this award. And there you can see the pride and well-deserved recognition here in her office. All right, as we also had some fantastic events to support, Mentor Connect is a program that primarily is out of Alta Vista High School, but also at our other comprehensive high schools. And they celebrated their 25th anniversary. And here you can see the foundation, which, and they support Mentor Connect. Our foundation executive directors and president, Rebecca Lowell, Christine Bardman, and Margaret Gong. And also we have Bill Pierce, who's the president at Alta Vista when it started 25 years ago. And so he's very proud, obviously, of the work that has been done. We had former students who were there who spoke to how these mentors changed their lives. And it was a wonderful ceremony that really pointed to the importance of that relationship. And we also, last week, had a PTSA meeting. And this picture is the College and Career Center. And I share this because in addition to discussing events of the school, we had a presentation around the improvements that are happening in the College and Career Center at Los Altos High School. So you can see here, it has an open feeling. We have new leadership within the College and Career Center. And the presentation really spoke to the importance of having this wonderful resource on campus, but also to make sure that it is welcoming. And so you can see here, it's a busy month for the College and Career Center, October typically. So please stop in if you haven't recently. Another event, and this one you can see I have the view of the callers. We had our annual foundation phone-a-thon. And so thank you to all who participated. It was such a well-organized event. I know we had our principals there, our central office team, board members, and it's an opportunity to not only fundraise, but really to celebrate the great work that happens with the foundation. So we had a dinner and a recognition, and it was really a well-attended event. I think this is about 1/8 of the group that was there. It's spread out all the way back. Another reminder, this is the front page of our MBLA district website. And just a reminder that if you have questions about COVID, knock on wood, you're having fewer and fewer questions lately, but we have a constantly updated FAQ that is right on the front page. And we want to make sure that you know that we are, as conditions change, we are updating it. It has been rather flat as far as conditions of late in all respects, but did want to point that out. Also wanted to share that we have a construction FAQ as well that is on our website, and that is something that will point to our phase 1, 2, and 3 projects. And we've had a lot of good presentations here to the board about these projects. But this is something that you can see, phase 1 is complete with new classrooms, STEM labs, and repairs. Phase 2 is the big one that you're seeing, the student services buildings at both comprehensive schools, estimated to be completed in 2023. Auxiliary gyms, you can see 21 and 22, and then also freestyle academy and labs. Other things that will happen include replacing fields with synthetic turf. And then phase 3, really past the big buildings that are being built, but modernization, upgrades, improving capacity in different places. expanding classrooms that we have that are on the small side and increasing capacity for music and arts rooms. So just kind of a brief snapshot to see what the 3 phases are, and thank you to our business department for managing and working so hard on all of these moving parts and pieces. Wanted to just briefly also share the most recent COVID news, and I won't read it, but I did want to address it because we had this as a question that came up at our last board meeting. You know, what does the future hold? Are we going to be wearing masks forever? And the answer is no, but so I did want to share just the recent information that came out in our region in Northern California, except for Solano County and with the addition of Berkeley. They did announce criteria for when we can start to step out. So just briefly, you would need to have 3 weeks in what they consider a moderate transmission tier. And I hated to even write the word orange, very frankly, except I know it's a Giants evening, so I don't want to be disrespectful, but I didn't want to go back to that chart, but that is what they're looking at. 2, low hospitalization and stable rates, which we have in Santa Clara. We've met 2. And then 3, 80% of the population fully vaccinated. Santa Clara County is one of the top, I think it's in the top 3 in the state as far as that 3rd indicator. But the trick is, it's not really a trick, but in order to get to 80%, that would include the population. So it would include young people ages 5 to 12. So until that vaccination for them comes out, we're probably still going to be waiting on the ability to end some of the mask requirements. And then San Francisco kind of has their own system there. And so they're planning to lift indoor mask rules in some places. And we look to these indicators because they do inform what happens in schools. But right now, we are anxiously awaiting the ability to see young people between the ages of 5 and 11 vaccinated. And we're hoping that will help adjust some of the things that we have to work with. Back to a future event, we have the MBLA Parent Speaker Series that is titled, "Yes, Your Teen is Crazy. Loving Your Kid Without Losing Your Mind." And so that's a catchy title. I look forward to hearing about that. And there's probably a counter story that will be presented with the opposing viewpoint. But we also have some other important dates coming up tomorrow, as was mentioned, SAT, PSAT, for most of our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. The speaker series, as mentioned, and then upcoming board meetings on the 25th and the 8th. And on the 8th, we will have a study session from 4 to 6, which will be looking at some of our data indicators that we have as a district, and then a regular meeting that evening at 7. And then lastly, Veterans Day holiday coming up on the 11th. So with that, you can see homecoming week was a success, and it was fun and a lot of costumes. And I look forward to also seeing Los Altos celebrating in the next couple of weeks. So that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Questions for Dr. Meyer before we move on? No. Okay. Thank you. That takes us to item 13.1, which is communications from our district organizations. And I don't see a representative from our Teachers Association here this evening, so we're good. Okay. Thank you. And item 14.1 would be public comment on items not on the agenda. I don't think I see anybody here for that purpose, but would anybody like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda this evening? Okay, thank you. So we are at item 15, which is our consolidated motion, and I would take a motion.
I move that we approve consolidated motion items 15.1 through 15.9.
I second.
Got a motion from Catherine and a second from Sanjay to approve items 15.1 through 15.9. Ava, how would you like to vote?
I agree.
Thank you. Riley?
I agree.
Thank you. And back to the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, motion carries 5-0. And nothing was pulled from consolidated, so we're on to 17.1 with it, which is our math department presentation. I'll turn it over to Dr. Meyer.
All right, thank you. Tonight, we're going to hear an update about our mathematics program, and I would like to introduce, and I know you may know her, Marcy Winnower. She is our instructional support teacher who has an emphasis on mathematics, and I look forward to her report. So thank you, Marcy, for being here this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Thank you for inviting me tonight. Good evening, everyone. So Dr. Meyer invited me tonight just to give you some quick updates on what's happening in math. So basically, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've done to transition from remote learning back into the classroom. Oops, I think I skipped the slide. And then some 21-22 highlights, both from the classrooms and at the state level and national level. Some very interesting conversations happening around math that I wanted to share some of that. And then just some math enrollment data that's going to support some of these interesting conversations that are happening right now in math. So as we know, we had, all of our kids, all of our students out doing an amazing job working remotely with our staff. And we're back full in the classroom for most of our students. And I would want to mention that I think it was the spring of 2020, I met with the department coordinators of the math departments when we were talking about what would make sense in terms of figuring out where our students are with their math learning. And it became very clear very quickly that doing any type of standardized testing wasn't a really good idea. And I actually reached out to some people at the Silicon Valley Math Initiative for a position paper on returning to school. And they shared with me this paper, and I actually have it linked to the end of this presentation. And these are the 6 big ideas. And one of the authors is a professor at Berkeley. So I was pretty confident that this information made a lot of sense. So basically trying to keep the kids going, at grade level, keep the rigor high. And then trying really hard to focus more on depth than quickness, pacing, going too quickly, which is a big message that's coming from the state and from our national groups in terms of what's important for high school mathematics. And also, very important, I thought number 5 was really interesting, to identify learning gaps through instruction, not through standardized testing. Standardized testing does leave some kids behind. It's not always accurate, especially in mathematics, I think. So identifying gaps while the learning is going on. And then I wanted to read, I don't think it's in this presentation, so I just want to read a statement from this document that I brought these from. Unfinished learning is nothing new. Addressing skill gaps, incomplete learning, and misconceptions is a necessary and natural part of teaching and learning. All too often, unfinished learning leads to remediation or pull-out interventions that serve to further isolate students and impede their access to rigorous, engaging grade-level content. This is how something as natural as unfinished learning leads to intractable achievement and opportunity gaps. So this is from the paper, Addressing Unfinished Learning After COVID-19 School Closures, pages 4 and 5. As I said, this is linked to the end of the presentation if you want to read it, the whole document later. We learned a lot during distance learning. Teachers reported, and as I was doing some observations, that there were students who were participating through Zoom chat who hadn't participated in the classroom. So there were some silver linings that we were learning about during distance learning, and we wanted to bring those back to the classroom. We're using more technology to try to have those voices, keep those voices going, even now that we're back in the classroom. And the emphasis is on just in time, not just in case support. So I can tell you that in the past, I have worked with course teams who tried to do some type of pre-learning before they started their content. and it doesn't help the students because what they need is that just-in-time support. So you're about to teach a concept, you're thinking about the prerequisite skills, and you've got that scaffolding available for the students who need it. So that's really the focus that the teachers have been doing. So keep moving students forward, scaffolding where necessary. Oh, it is here. That's what I just read. I wasn't sure if it made it in here. All right, so I wanted to share a little bit about some of the ideas that are back in the classroom. So during distance learning, you know, there were a lot of high school content standards, and it was real tough with the schedule and the capacity of the students. And I know our 2 board member students can attest to this. It was exhausting. So the math teachers worked really hard to try to focus on the most important ideas that students would need at the next level. And we're bringing that really good work back into the classrooms. So again, focusing on essential standards, trying to assess students more frequently, formative assessment, so that we can think about where are the gaps, if there are any. And our teachers are used to this. You know, we follow a traditional math sequence in our district. And so we've always seen students where they'll come to the next level of math, and there's always some type of scaffolding available. So it may be, you know, I was talking to one teacher who said at the beginning of the year, she had a lot of kids who needed scaffolding. I just checked in with her recently. She said it's really going very well. It's evening out, the kids are back. And part of it, I think, was just getting used to being back in school. It's different, right, with the masks and everything else. So you're going to see teachers using more time in class for problem solving rather than assigning, you know, some teachers are looking at, let's start our homework in class so that I'm here to support you rather than just sending everything home. And the products that are helping with this, you know, we have a product called Nearpod that our district has supported. It's a presentation platform that was very popular during this distance learning, but we're still using it to collect formative assessment. I'm going to show you an example in a little while of some information I collected on Nearpod so you can see what it looks like. And then we have an application called iExcel, and it is super popular in our district. It's for ELA and math. We probably, I don't know, we've thousands of students on it now, and the teachers are using that as one of their scaffold ways. So they can pinpoint what they want to assign students, so students can work on skills in the background as they're moving forward in their classes. The other product that we have that Mitzvah and I have been talking about how we can utilize this better is called Alex. So Alex is a math platform. It presents the students with an assessment, and then it builds a learning pie for the student, and it's adaptive. As the student's doing better on a certain concept, it will stop having the student practice that. And we've been talking about, so Alta Vista adopted Alex as their math platform 2 years ago. Math platform, Ms. Dowling, Mr. Pearson absolutely love it. So they've had it there for 2 years. So we had it last year. It was tough with distance learning to get the kids on it because they're on Zoom and they're doing all these other things. But now that we're back in person, we're talking about, can we use Alex to sort of help build our kids up? So we're talking about multi-tier systems of support, MTSS, right? So could one of our math tiers could be, maybe we have a place where we can have kids working in Alex who need a little extra support. So Spot and I are in preliminary conversations about that to see what we could do with that. All right, and I'm going to go into some fun highlights. I wanted to just pause. Are there any questions about returning from remote learning and how the teachers are feeling?
Could you share a little bit, now that we've moved to a block schedule, how that is impacting math? Because math was one of the courses that had some questions about not seeing students every day.
Right, and I'll be honest, I think there are concerns about that. That the teachers would like to see the students every day. I think we can do more to think about how can we use a block effectively. And it also goes back to the other point I made about what concepts are we covering in the math class, you know, looking for top essential concepts rather than trying to cover all the content. I'm going to talk a little bit about the standards in mathematics in a little while. Oh, actually, I think my next slide. But we still have quite a few content standards in
in our high school math program. So the teachers are looking at what are the essential standards at each level. And again, with the not seeing the kids every day, you don't want to double up too many concepts in one block period. That isn't really what the purpose of the block is, right? So, so there are conversations about, yes, we like seeing the kids more. Now, how can we, and then the other conversation is how can we make the most of these block schedules? So as you know, we have district goals around how different initiatives we're doing to support equity. And then we also have the sites have their WASC goals, which are very, very similar. And I wanted to just share with you 2 initiatives that the math departments are working on this year. So Los Altos High School has committed to doing data talks. And data talks are a math talk involving data. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where these came from. It has something to do with the new data science course that I'm actually going to talk to you a little bit about tonight. So they made a commitment. It's so awesome. Each course team is doing them. Some of them are doing more frequently than the others. I'm kind of pushing for more frequent so that the students are getting a good, you know, enough practice so that it's meaningful. Riley, have you done these in your math class yet? No. Okay, so all of the math teachers have committed to doing it, so you'll see it at some point. And then I've put down there are 8 mathematical practice standards that were rolled out in 2010, and reason abstractly and quantitatively is super important for our students. I mean, we're in a place where we need our students to be mathematical thinkers. And then over at Mountain View High School, I put what they're doing to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. They are looking at how can they support mathematical literacy. So they're going to have a conversation tomorrow during their department meeting and come up with different ways that they could do this. There's the 3 reads, there's math talks, there's all kinds of ways to help students engage with math to become more math literate. So that's going to be their charge in terms of their initiative that they're attacking as a department. And then I just wanted to share with you anecdotally some of the comments I asked the teachers when I found out last week that I had an opportunity to talk to you tonight. I asked the teachers for some feedback about what's happening. So these are just a couple comments from teachers. And the top left one is a teacher who just did the first data talk with her students. And one thing that stood out to me was the fact that all of the students could participate in this. It wasn't a content skill situation. There was an opening for everybody. And that's really the way we engage students in math, make them feel more competent in math so that they can engage with the rigor that's expected at their math level. And then this bottom right one, this happened actually, I was actually observing this one. You know, this tool that I talked about before, Nearpod, allows you to collect answers from students and you can anonymously show them to the rest of the class. And so this teacher chose a solution from a student who just didn't seem very engaged. And I heard from this teacher that the student was much more engaged after that. I mean, a little thing like that, just showing the work anonymously and highlighting it really helped that student to engage in his math class. So I wanted to take a minute to just bring this up. We did this could be a huge conversation, but I won't make it a huge conversation. I just wanted to sort of clarify. I think there's some confusion about what's going on with math. So as you know, in 2010, the Common Core state standards were adopted by over 40 states, including California. And then California in math at least added a few extra standards for probability and statistics, which I think was very, very good. In 2013, they rolled out a framework because teachers were struggling to figure out what to do with these standards. Now, the content standards are the content, right? What are we teaching in Algebra 1? What are we teaching in geometry? Then there were the 8 mathematical practice standards, and I linked a link to the state website so you can see what those are, but some of them I had up already. But so how do we take this content and teach it in a way so we're supporting the mathematical practice standard? So it was a struggle, and I remember because I started teaching in 2010, so I was in there. So this framework that they sent out in 2013 was super helpful, and what it was information for teachers on how to build content or build pedagogy
around the practice standards in your content area. So they had frameworks for every single class, including integrated math, because some of the districts have integrated math programs. They had assessment information, all this stuff. So what's happening now is they're revising that framework. And that's what, you've probably heard about this revision. It was supposed to be adopted this fall, but it is getting pushed up to 2022. And I just wanted to highlight two of the ideas that are also being, NCTM is all over this. This is all over the country of, multiple pathways in math should be available to high school students. And we want to keep them in math for 4 years. And the other big thing is the way we're teaching mathematics. So again, planning around big ideas, which is something our teachers are looking at. How do we, what are the big 5 ideas that we're going to look at this year? Bringing in more engaging tasks. And I'm going to show you in a minute some of the organizations we have access to, and we have a lot of materials we can draw from for engaging tasks. And then these other pieces, support our kids being problem solvers and being, understanding, so working in, mathematical classrooms towards social justice. So it's really interesting. And all of the recommendations in the framework support the 8 mathematical practice standards that, really focused on supporting diverse and inclusive classrooms in your mathematical classroom. So it's really very, very exciting. The framework's very similar to the 2013 framework. I actually was on one of the 4 task forces that gave input to this in 2019. I was on the Northern California task force. So what we were asked to do was come in and give them some information about how we felt about the original framework and what kind of recommendations we thought would be useful for the next one. And then this is really interesting. So to keep kids in 4 years of math, the other thing that's being recommended not only by our state, but NCTM is multiple pathways for math. You're probably, I'm sure you're familiar with Jo Boaler. She's a professor at Stanford University, and she's the co-founder of UCube. She's from England originally, but she's a big proponent of kids making sense of math. And Stephen Levitt, who's a professor of economics at the University of Chicago, reached out to her a few years ago because his daughter was like a sophomore in high school. And he was concerned about what she was learning in math. Was it relevant to this 21st century? So he's also a co-author of Freakonomics, which is a really interesting book if you haven't read it. So they got together with Google and they developed a course. And this is the first year it's being taught. And our teachers are interested in looking at it. Of course, we would have to go through the whole course approval process, but we do have a couple teachers who are going to do the asynchronous training for this class on their own time. And we're looking at, maybe next year we could think about a proposal for bringing this to our students. It is a really interesting course. It's a course for students to question data, look for data they're interested in, build models. It incorporates all kinds of Google, the workspace tools, Python programming. So it's a very relevant course and a different type of math course than our students have seen before. The other really exciting news is that the AP Computer Science course is now a math A through G. It's a C now. It just morphed into it. So the College Board just decided that students can use AP Computer Science as a math course. So your A through G requirement now doesn't necessarily have to be an Algebra 2. It could be one of these other courses. And there are other courses also being considered. So it's a very exciting time. And again, the idea is to keep more kids in 4 years of math. All right, so we're going to take a little break and try this. So what I'd like you to do is tell me which number doesn't belong. Which number doesn't belong?
144.
Why?
Because the others are powers of a single prime. 144 requires 2 primes.
2 primes. So single primes on the other 3, 2 primes for 144. Thank you. Anybody else?
I was going to 32,
Can I
right?
say 81?
Would you like to defend 81?
Well, could it just be for any reason?
Yes.
It's odd.
It's odd.
I'm so in your camp. That's what I was thinking.
Okay,
I didn't really look into it.
so I went 32 because it's not a square.
Not a square?
Right.
Okay.
144
second that.
three digits.
Three digits on 144, okay, we've got a second. Anybody else? All right, so the point here is that there isn't a right answer. It's about what you see. It's about how our brains think. And it is amazing if you go into a classroom and you listen to the students do a problem like this. Now, this is called Which One Doesn't Belong, WODB. It's a website. And a lot of our teachers are pulling from this website. I've also seen teachers do things like take a sinusoidal and translate it or transform it and have 4 different ones, and the kids are comparing which one doesn't belong. And then that can lead into, let's write an equation and transform that equation to fit all of these. So you can go as simple or as in depth as you can, but the point is, it's a way to engage. Most students are going to engage in this. It's math literacy, understanding numbers, like you were saying, perfect squares, 3 digits, primes, ways of thinking about numbers in a non-threatening way. And most students can engage with this type of a problem. Now, what I want to share with you now is some input. So I think it was last fall, I was invited to work with avid tutors at Mountain View High School. And there were about 25 avid tutors, and the teachers asked me, would you please help the students talk to the students? Like, how would you direct these tutors to talk to the students? So I was like, I'd love to do that. So what we did, we were on Zoom, of course, because we were in remote learning. And we talked about how to talk to students so that you can understand how they're thinking. What you see here is what's called the dot talk. It's a type of a math talk where you ask students to count the objects, but you can't count by ones. And so these are like juniors and seniors. And look at all the different ideas. Now, one of the students was counting negative space. I don't know where that was coming from. But then the one at the top right was really interesting too, because, it's 10 arrows, but that student was counting the points on the arrows, which I hadn't seen a student do before. So again, this is a sort of an introductory type of math talk, but there are so many different ways to engage students this way, where you give them something, an error correction, for example, a complicated polynomial, and you see what they can do. Can you imagine what types of conversations this problem would come up with? And there is a solution to this, by the way, I checked. So again, just opening that up to students' different ways of thinking. So we're doing a lot of that. We're starting to really think about how to do that in our classrooms. And then I just wanted to share with you, we're not working in isolation. We have quite a few organizations. The CMC, California Mathematics Council, we have teachers every year that go to their, they have a Northern Conference in Asilomar, which I'm actually presenting at this year. And then there's one at Palm Springs that about 5 teachers are going to this year. So every year we have teachers participating here. The Silicon Valley Education Foundation, we bring in their math programs in the summer. I think we're going to try to do that again this summer now that we're back in person. The ISTE is the International Society for Technology and Education. I'm working on a certification with that. So I'm really looking at, how do we incorporate educational technology to best support our students? And of course, NCTM, which is a huge organization. Silicon Valley Math Initiative, a few years, we use their math assessments. They're called math assessments, but they're really tasks. And the tasks are really interesting. They start out pretty low floor, and as you go on questions, the questions get more complicated. So if a student is proficient on question number 5, for example, that would be your exceeding student. So they're very well organized, and we've been using those for years. And then I just wanted to, this data is, we could say so much about this. The reason I brought this data in is because I was trying to support the ideas that are being brought up by the state, by NCTM, by the College Board in terms of different pathways in math and kids taking 4 years of math. So our statistics classes are kind of going through the roof. Now, I need to drill more on this. I don't know how many kids are taking calculus and statistics, or how many kids are just taking statistics, but I just pulled these numbers very quickly. Our AP Computer Science, I'm really excited about this. I do believe we need to do more work getting more kids into some of our computer science classes. I'm still seeing many kids who aren't even taking advantage of the intro course. So I would like to work on what we can do about that. And then we're doing pretty well with kids taking 4 years of math. We want to be 100%, right? We want all of our kids taking 4 years of math. And then I'm ending with this quote. So Robert Moses was a civil rights leader. He also created the Algebra Project, and he passed away recently. But what has happened in math is so interesting because it's not just, we used to talk about like Algebra 2 being the gatekeeper of college, but now we're talking about math competency being a civil right. That we have, our students have a civil right to have a math education that works for them. And this quote, he was written back, I believe he wrote a book called The Algebra Project in 2001, but back in the 80s, he was working on this. And I also wanted to share a quote from the Catalyzing Change book. To maximize students' opportunities after high school and prepare them to actively engage in democratic society, high school should ensure that all students enroll in a mathematics course every year. So you can tell that almost every page of this book is important. And I have 2 extra copies if anybody would like to read it. It's a quick read. It's the statement from NCTM. This came out in 2018 about how we should be thinking about reimagining high school mathematics. And then, of course, these are the references that I pulled from. And thank you for inviting me. Are there any questions? Questions?
Yeah, Phil want to ask first?
Oh, Phil, sorry, I didn't see Phil's hand. Phil, did you want to go ahead?
I have a question, but other people, mine might take a little time.
That's okay. You got it. You have the floor.
Okay. So I was hoping you might be able to walk me through what goes on, let's say, in an Algebra 2 or algebra classroom in terms of how the instruction is actually conducted. For example, let's just go back to your slide that had, I don't know. Let's do the one with synthetic division, right? So that's the slide that has shows you dividing a linear polynomial into a cubic polynomial on the left, and then on the right, it shows you the same thing happening with synthetic division. How would you introduce this concept and what goes on in the classroom to get the student from the method on the left, which is usually the one they first see, to the method on the right, which is a shortcut?
It really depends on how this is rolled out. So the point in showing that, in my opinion, was to show different ways of student thinking. So if I were the teacher, I would allow students to do either one of those in terms of doing long division, as long as there was a linear binomial for the synthetic division. So that was my point in that. So it really depends on, the sequencing. I believe the students are going to see the long division method first. And then I think if you're using a simple binomial to divide, if I were in the classroom, I would probably throw out a more complicated one and have the kids figure it out, because that's where you get that mathematical thinking coming in, right? Okay, I learned a strategy. How can I apply this strategy to a more complicated problem? So,
So can I just interrupt a minute?
of course.
So I think I've already got something from what you just said. So what you're telling me is that before you did anything with the synthetic division part, you would talk first about the actual polynomials, and then you would introduce the synthetic division after they became familiar with that. But is that the practice that's actually followed? Because one of the complaints I've been hearing is that what would happen is the student would just be given a bunch of divisions to do, and then would be graded the next day, their homework, without any introduction in the class. And the homework would just sort of be checked off. There would be no feedback. And then there would be an explanation in class, and then a test, a quiz. Is that how it proceeds?
So I think, are you asking me if there's a directive to teach that way at the sites? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking is, I mean, for example, I think this is called the flipped classroom model.
Oh, you're talking about flipped classroom. Okay. So I would say, you know, I know board member Dave and I had an opportunity, I think it was 2 years ago. We went and observed 2 classes at Los Altos High School, 2 Algebra 2 honors classes. And I thought it was really interesting. I saw a lot of support in the classroom for the students. I would say that I don't feel like I've seen traditional, like when I think about a traditionally flipped classroom, like you would see it maybe Sacred Heart or some of the schools that have really adopted this. I think what I have seen is a tendency for teachers who would like, you know, an honor student. It would be very important for an honor student to be math literate, right? Trying to teach your students how to read a textbook in math. You know, I think that's not a bad thing. And what I've seen is a lot of support in the classroom when the kids come back to the classroom for their problem solving. So I would love to maybe, we could dive down deeper just to see specifically what you're talking about, maybe get a specific example, but you know, the classes that I've observed, there's a lot of support in the classroom when the kids are back for the problem solving. That's really the emphasis for our kids, right? You know, we need our kids to be problem solvers, be analytical thinkers, and that's, I see that happening in the classroom. So again, I would entertain more specific information about this, and I would love, you know, can get you more information later if that's helpful.
Okay, I think that would be great. Thank you very much. I just want to say I agree 100% that it's valuable to teach kids to learn how to read a mathematics text or a mathematics paper, because so much of the learning they're going to do later when they get out of high school is not going to be through a lecture or a tutorial. It's going to be sitting down with a paper or a textbook and working through it. And you can't read a math book the way you read a novel. You have to read a math book with a pencil in your hand, if you still use a pencil. If not, you can use a laptop. But it's essential that students learn how to read math, and it doesn't go at the rate of 20 pages an hour. Sometimes you're lucky to do a page an hour.
Absolutely. And, you know, we do, you know, have a big emphasis this year on mathematical literacy and reading, right? And so, you know, I think you're going to see more teachers, maybe even bringing, you know, mathematical papers in. There's so many cool things we could have the kids reading, even have the kids choose something, so that we are getting that, like you said, it's a very different way of reading. It's more technical. There's a lot of academic vocabulary, so that takes practice.
Yeah, and I will take you up on your offer to go into this offline in more depth.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you, Marcy, for coming today and presenting. So I want to continue with Phil's questions, though. So yeah, we did observe the classroom, that one classroom that we were able to observe. You know, but I've continued to hear issues with the teachings, specifically at Los Altos High School. I don't know about Mountain View High School. It's maybe the pedagogy is different between the two schools. You know, maybe another question I have, the second part of this, but I am continue to hear issues with the teaching at mathematics at Los Altos High School, and specifically the honors and AP courses. They're using either a flipped classroom or hybrid. You know, I know all these terms are being thrown out, where their children come home where they try to solve these problems and they don't, because they haven't been taught how to do them, and they can feel very frustrated. And by and large, a lot of them, what they end up doing is they end up either hiring a tutor or trying to teach them themselves, but they end up hiring a tutor to help them through that. And I realized, so the conversation we had 2 years ago, we were going to look into it more. And I know at that time, I think and maybe Phil can speak to a bit more details about the foundation survey that was done on this back then as well. And our previous associate superintendent was going to look into it. And then, you know, 2000, you know, COVID happened, all stuff. So I know all those things kind of went away. but one of the things I remember of one of her metrics was that, well, the SAT scores are good. And, I think that's, and I just want to, I don't think that's necessarily the right metric to use to see whether a method we're teaching or we're introducing is necessarily successful or not. So I guess the question is, if we are doing a flipped classroom or hybrid or whatever approach it is, I'd like to know what is the metric we're using to know whether the pedagogy that we're doing is effective or not. And we can come back to that at a later date to kind of go into that. We don't have to go into that tonight, but that's something I definitely would be interested in, because that was there was parents who had sent me emails 2 years ago. I think you had probably seen some of those emails back then, but I continue to get those emails as well. Even this past year, very similar. Basically a very similar complaint with a similar style that was basically that was sent to me a couple years ago. So it's like it's continuing. And so I guess that's why I just want to bring that up, as this is a concern that there's a number of parents are having, that basically feel that their child is not being taught the subject, and they have to do it on their own. And a lot of these parents, they have means, they have ways to do it, and they're hiring tutors to be able to do that. But that's not what we want for them to have to do.
And you're talking specifically about Algebra 2 honors.
No, I'm talking about all honors and AP courses.
Okay.
That's what I've heard about.
So I do want to respect your questions, and I will definitely look into that. In terms of metrics, I think if you look at passing rates in Algebra 2 honors classes, that could be one, right? And that could be one metric. You could also look at when we have our kids take the SBAC exams 11th grade year, we could take a look at that. That's an objective metric.
But yet again, right? You have to. Are they hiring a tutor, right, to basically know that subject and get to know those problems?
Yes,
which apparently I think a lot of them are.
Yeah, and I think there's another, in addition to the metric, in addition to looking at it further, there's something else I really would like us to look into, and that is what has happened in the middle school. So in 2010, the Common Core was a very thoughtful curriculum, and the Common Core writers wrote very good 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade math courses, rigorous and very fundamentally sound. What is happening, I want to share some other numbers I pulled. We have this year, 40% of our freshmen are taking Algebra 2 or Algebra 2 honors. And the only way that's happening is if they're somehow skipping some of the fundamental math. So in addition to looking at the metrics of the pedagogy, in addition to doing more research, I also would like to look at, is there a fundamental math that we're missing that the kids needed to be successful in the higher math classes? I think that's a legitimate question. I was on a webinar on Friday called the New California Mathematics Framework, PK-12 Perspectives on Diversity and Equity. And they were talking about some issues that people have brought up, but there was a person on the panel who talked about those courses, those middle school courses that are really the fundamental math that they need to be successful in high school. A lot of kids are skipping over those. We'll see kids who don't even want to take the CC8 class. So I don't know exactly. I want to look into it. I think
I guess, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand what you had said. So you said we have an increase of 40%.
So we have this year 40% of the freshmen. I'm sorry, not 40%. It's 40% of our Algebra 2 students are freshmen. 40% of them. And Algebra 2 is traditionally a sophomore or sometimes a junior class. So in order for our freshmen to take Algebra 2 freshman year, something got skipped.
Why do you say that?
Because there are very thoughtful classes, CC6, CC7, and CC8. So when the kids get into middle school, they're taking geometry somehow in middle school, so they can take Algebra 2. And again, I don't have any evidence of this being an issue. It's something else I want to look into. How is the whatever fundamental work the students haven't been able to do, is that also affecting what's happening with these higher level math classes. Maybe not, but I'm just saying it's something we should definitely look into also.
So the math pathways for our elementary school districts, I think Los Altos changed to some of Mountain View. I don't know if you may know better than I do, but I know with Mountain View, Wisman, they're basically in middle school, you can eventually get into two pathways in mathematics. And depending on, how well you do in sixth grade, they kind of determine where, what direction you're going to go to. But if you're on the higher math pathway, you will take geometry in eighth grade. And so, you'll have algebra before that, and then you'll have geometry in eighth grade, and then you can take algebra 2 or algebra 2 honors in ninth grade. And I believe Los Altos modified their program too. Fiona, you probably know better than I do.
Yeah.
But I think which allows them to have the same math
They're
pathway.
actually not having the same math background.
They don't have the same math
It's not-
pathway as Mountain View.
No,
Wisdom?
not the pathway, it's the background. It's the fundamental skill building that's happening. So if there are 3 classes in middle school, right? CC6, CC7, and CC8. If you're taking geometry in middle school, there's something that's been either compacted or isn't being taught. So, as we know, math is cumulative, right? So when you get into the higher level math, if the fundamental skills aren't there, it makes the higher level math harder, right? So again, I don't know if that's contributing to any of.
So I guess, but if I
But I would love to look into it.
I just want to understand what you're suggesting. So are you suggesting specifically at Los Altos that the kids that are taking, the freshmen that may be taking algebra 2 are possibly missing some fundamentals, and that's why they're having a more difficult time when they take more advanced math
And it's
classes?
not just specifically at Los Altos. I didn't mean to infer that. I'm talking across the board with all of our students. And I don't have evidence of that. I just, it's what's been talked about at the state level. It's been talked about in this writing. And I just wonder, it's a wonder of mine, something I think we should look into in terms of, is there some fundamental math that obviously the Common Core that was adopted by almost every state in this country is a powerful math sequence. And we've done some tweaking to it so that our students can accelerate into algebra 2 as freshmen. So my question is just, what kind of effect has that had? Maybe it's nothing. I don't have any data yet for our district, but it's just a question that I have. And I don't mean just at Los Altos. I think for all of our students, some of the fundamental math and some of the things we were talking about before in terms of being problem solvers and being able to reason and think analytically, we need our students to have opportunities to do that. And those are really important skills for the 21st century. So I definitely will look into your questions, metrics, looking at, how do we feel about this? But I also think we should take a look at if we have any concerns about fundamental math skills that we may be missing also.
So what I find interesting about this conversation is really the integrative courses in 6, 7, and 8, and that shift when they went from Common Core 6, 7, 8 away from the discrete traditional pathway of algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and on. And what I'm hearing you say is that in the 6, 7, and 8, because it isn't an explicit geometry course, and it's integrated all the way up 6, 7, 8, that there are gaps that perhaps lead to some struggles as they get into the higher discrete courses. Is that a fair statement?
I think I might have misunderstood you, Dr. Meyer, but let me just clarify what I was saying. So, our middle schools have worked with our geometry teachers, and they teach a geometry honors level course in the middle school. So if the kids are in 8th grade taking geometry, they're taking a comparable course to our geometry honors course. In order to do that, something had to give in the younger grades. Either the student accelerated out of CC6 math, something happened. You can't take all those 3 years of middle school math and geometry and algebra 1. So that's what I'm trying to say. And those courses that were very thoughtfully built for middle school kids, And it could be, you know, I think we do have a percentage of kids who have that innate math ability, but for our kids who need more fundamental work, it's a question I have. It's a wonder. You know, is this affecting what some of the hardship our kids are seeing in math classes? And of course, we want to help them.
Could I jump in here? It seems to me there's an easy way to answer this question. In the 8th grade, there is a Common Core exam for mathematics. All the students, well, who aren't excused by their parents, take that. There is no comparable thing in 9th grade, but we could give our own version of that in 9th grade and see how the students are doing. And if the students who were doing well in 8th grade continue to be doing well in 9th grade, great. And if the students who skipped whatever fundamental point was missing there, they should have had a low score in 8th grade and should be getting a correspondingly low score in 9th grade. Why don't we do that?
We absolutely could. There's actually, CASP has something called an ICA test, and we could certainly, I wouldn't want to do anything except something that's aligned with Common Core. So I think we could look at that ICA. It's not an interim assessment block, it's a longer test. And I believe they have one at each grade level. So we could certainly look into, you know, rolling that out in the spring or something for the 9th graders. We could talk about that for sure. Okay, I think that's very reasonable. Thank you.
And to one other topic, sorry to put all this on you right now. The other issue I've heard is in terms of the non-honors and AP courses in mathematics, that the rigor is the difference between the two is vast. You see students shaking their head, and so and where this, you know, where it harms the students is when they eventually go to college, where they end up realizing they have to take remedial math just to kind of catch up. And I've heard this from some parents. Actually, I've heard this for many years actually. And so I just you know, and I know this, I think this discussion has come up before, but I was wondering if there's, you know, maybe there's something else we can talk about later or go into more depth later on too, is maybe understanding, you know, what the pedagogy is difference between those, you know, the honors and AP courses versus the regular course, and what can we do to basically maybe improve the regular courses. So I don't know if you guys want to add any more.
And again, I really would want more specific feedback about this. Because I would like to define rigor, right? You know, is it about doing lots of calculation, or is it about problem solving, you know, analytical thinking and things like that? So I think we should maybe take a look at, and I think the other thing that would be interesting is take a look at what some of the professors are saying, math professors in our community, and get some feedback, some specific feedback about what's happening with the students. I think that would be helpful. Yes.
I did want to hear from Kamala and Eva on their experience in the math and the type of math you've taken, and your A experience, and B, your feedback from your fellow students that you are.
Yeah. I can start, well, talking about what you're saying in middle school, the fundamental maths. I don't know if it was different, but ours was CC6, and then CC 7-8 was one class, and then geometry was one. And then I don't know if that means that we skipped something, but that was just kind of, I felt like what the normal, or like one of the courses was. And then I do agree that I've heard that there's a huge difference in the rigor between the regular classes and the honors classes. I know my freshman year I took regular algebra 2, and I had friends that took honors algebra 2, and I felt like my class was very chill, very relaxed. I feel like we didn't move very fast, but then my friends in algebra 2 honors were really struggling, and they were really stressed out all the time, and I just didn't understand why there was such a big difference between the two. And I've also heard that from people that dropped out of trig honors and went to regular trig, that there's just a big difference. And I mean, I guess maybe that's the point of having one or the other, but I don't know if there's some way to kind of bridge the gap and try to make them closer together and bigger and still have a difference, but just not make the differences so drastic.
Thank you for that feedback. Albert, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I actually have a situation where freshman year I took normal geometry, and then sophomore year I jumped up to Algebra 2 honors. Because like Riley said, I felt like the normal math level, I wasn't like as confident in math as I was in my other skills, so I thought that would be fine for me. But I did find that I wasn't really learning that much, and I wasn't really being challenged that much. But then when I went to the honors level, it was really difficult. Like my parents hired a tutor for me, just to like try to learn the concepts. And I do feel like there's a really big gap, and that's something that I hear all the time. And not only in math and a lot of other classes, but I think math is one of those things, as you're saying, where it's like cumulative. So it can be really difficult once you get to higher classes when there's also an emphasis on speed. So you're like missing some things because you go over them really fast or things like that. So yeah.
So thank you. And it's interesting because Algebra 2 is coming up so much, but I do want to point out so that everyone knows and the students will know this, that the Trig and Trig Honors teachers use the same exact book. So Trig Honors goes more quickly because they're preparing you to go to BC Calculus. So that's why they're going more quickly. And so that has to happen because you'll know that with the kids that are in Trig Honors will end up doing this first part of calculus before the year ends, but it's the same content. So, you know, if you're in a regular Trig class, and, you know, we're in conversation, so we are very, in my opinion, we need some materials. There's a lot of free stuff, but, you know, we do talk about, can we align the honors and the college prep classes with materials? I think that's definitely reasonable, and it's conversations that we are having. I totally hear what you're saying about Algebra 2. It's a very different resource that's being used than the Algebra 2 honors resource. And so I can see how students would interpret that. So thank you for that feedback. I appreciate that. And I'll look into that more.
Yeah, and then just one more thing is I feel like I haven't heard this Algebra 2, I feel like it's just a standout for some reason. And I feel like I haven't heard the same kind of feedback for Trig and even Calc. I know Calc A, B, and BC, I've heard kids who've switched that it's a good amount of difference for Calc. Trig, maybe a little worse than Calc in that difference, but I feel like Algebra 2 just stands out from other ones. I know those aren't as bad in regards to the differences between honors and regular.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Yeah,
What you're taking right now?
I'm in AB stats this year.
What are you in?
I'm in Trig honors. Yeah.
and then would anyone like a copy of the Catalyzed Machines book?
I want to borrow one.
Thank you. I'm happy to share it with.
She can borrow one and then I'll bring it back. I have one more question too in terms of, as you say, cumulative. And you said, you know, go quicker because they need to cover the more material, you know,
For the Trig Honors course?
for the Trig Honors class, but that's true in a lot of math classes too. And if it is supposed to be cumulative, then you are supposed to have fundamentals and you are supposed to have essential fundamental understanding of, you know, key math concepts. Then you don't get that one part and you get a crummy grade on that test, and then you move on to the next topic, as opposed to you can't go past here. I mean, in some of those programs you're talking about, and stuff like that, maybe that works, but in the regular classroom instruction, where do you get to stop and you don't go on until you get that to the next one, because you're gonna have a harder time with the next concept if you didn't even get that one.
100%. And, you know, the teachers have worked really hard, not just in math, but to provide alternative, like multiple opportunities for to show proficiency. So some of the math teachers do sort of cumulative testing where for a semester, and I'll be probably experienced this at Mountain View, they keep spiraling through the content so students can have multiple opportunities to show proficiency. And then I know at Los Altos, the students have an opportunity to do corrections just so that they can come back and take a look at where they might not be proficient. I do want to mention the Algebra 2 curriculum is not different in honors. If you look at the standards for Algebra 2 honors and Algebra 2, they're almost the same. There's a more of an emphasis on problem solving, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think that's important in the college prep class also. But like I said, we've been working on material to that class. It's you know, we haven't found resources that the teachers really like to support Algebra 2 yet. The honors book is, I think, a really good resource, but it's out of print and they're falling apart. So we really need to find a way to bring in some materials for that course. So, I thank you.
New courses that you're putting together in the high school, the data science course, and are you planning to hopefully bring it back to board this year for next year?
I'm thinking it probably has to be next fall because it has to go through an internal process first, so the sites have to approve it first. So what we're doing right now, I have 2 teachers already committed to doing the asynchronous learning that with Stanford. I'm going to do it. I want to grab a couple other teachers and then prepare ourselves for looking at the course. The course is outlined, and like that there is a pilot that I don't know which districts are doing it right now, but there are some districts running the course right now. And so this would probably come to the board sometime next year for 23, 24 implementation maybe. Yeah, so it'll be a little while now. Now, AP Computer Science we've had, forever, and I'd love to, I think my feeling about computer science is we need more kids exposed to it. I'm hoping that someday that's a requirement for graduation. That's how I feel about it. So.
Yeah, I like that. There's always students that's not on that track to go to calculus, right? And we're offering the statistics classes and alternatives, want them to take 4 years. I think if we had another opportunity for them to take something else, that just gives them more exposure to different types of math and rather than just everybody going to stats, right?
Yes, absolutely. Data science is a different course and it's much more relevant to some of the careers the kids are going to have. And think of it, they'll be doing some Python, which is cool.
Right,
So
right.
you can't go wrong with that. So
Can I borrow that extra bucket of stuff? I thought maybe something would take it, but I have like, absolutely. Yeah, let's see how it's Sunday.
So Marcy, data science would be coming to both campuses, is that correct?
I hope so. I mean, I would hope so.
Okay, yeah, just I'd like to,
Again, it has to get approved by the sites and then come to the board.
yeah, I'd
The
just like to
teachers
keep
are
the offerings
super
the same,
excited
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Like I said, the data talk's really interesting. They show the kids a data set and the kids just, what do I notice? What do I wonder? And it's just incredible. And the kids are expected to challenge the data, right? You don't want to believe everything you read. They'll come up with things like, well, I don't think the way the graph is labeled makes any sense. So these are kids, some of these kids don't even talk in class. So it's another way for them to engage and a very important part of being in a democratic society, right? Like we need to be able to understand data and differentiate whether it's true or not. So we have a lot of excitement about that course. And again, we just have to go through the approval process. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are on to item 17.2, which is an update from College Now. Dr. Martin?
All right, yes, thank you. I'd like to invite Dr. McHenry to the podium. I just want to state that I know there has been a request for an update on College Now, and I definitely have enjoyed reviewing these particular slides and look forward to the presentation. So, Dr. McHenry.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sure that this may not be as interesting as the last presentation. We are in the 4th year of the College Now program. And of course, College Now is an early college high school program. It is authorized by Code 11302. We accept about 40 students a year. I'm a retiree, so I'm a part-time employee. So in terms of cost, this is probably the least expensive program in the district. It differs from middle college in that students in the middle college program, there are 4 instructors, teacher advisors for the middle college program. They're on campus every day. So students in the middle college, they are able to see their instructors every day. It makes communication a lot easier. They get more support. Students in the College Now program literally have to advocate for themselves. So one of the characteristics of a College Now student, you have to be academically talented. You have to persevere. You have to be self-confident. You have to have good study habits. You can't be intimidated by adults, because when you're on campus and talking, and there's a problem with an instructor, you have to advocate for yourself. The type of students that are in the program, we have athletes, we have musicians. This year, we have 2 juniors in Los Altos who are professional dancers. They travel all over the areas dancing together. We have a student at Mountain View who started a Me Too club. We had a student during the pandemic that baked goods for people and took them to their homes. We have several students who started their own business. So the College Now students, you probably will, similar to these 2 young students right here, strong leaders, strong athletes. One of the characteristics that they have is they're able to manage their time. We have a student at Mountain View who was in the Madrigals program. She had a 15-hour-a-week interns. If you're familiar with the Madrigals program, they probably do about 30 or 40 concerts a year. She was able to go to practice, she was able to do concerts, she was able to do her internship, and she was able to take her classes at Foothill. And when she was allowed on campus, she was able to come back to Mountain View for all of the different practices and everything. The program began in the fall of 2018. Students must be a junior or a senior in high school. Initially, in the fall of 2018, students could take 11.5 units, which are double for high school, so that would be 23 high school units. A typical schedule for a junior entering the College Now program, taking their classes at Foothill, they would take English 1A in the fall, and that would be a 5-unit course, double for 10. They would take History 17A. That was a 4-unit course, would be double for 8. And then they would take a math or science or a world language. And then in the winter quarter, they would take History English 1B, History 17B or C, and again, another math or science or world language course. Several of the students have elected to graduate early. We usually have somewhere between 2 to 4 students who graduate early each year as juniors, because what they find is that fall quarter, they take English 1A, winter quarter, they take English 1B. They're finished with their English requirement for high school graduation. Fall quarter, take History 17A, winter quarter, it takes History 17B. They're finished for their US history requirement at the end of the winter quarter. So students, when I meet with them, they says, well, Mr. McHenry, can I graduate early? I said, well, actually you can, because most students enter the program with about 150 credits, and they can earn 30 credits per quarter, or 90 per year, plus 6 in summer school. So they can literally do 96 credits per year if they all 3 years. The getting into the program requires a minimum grade point average of 2.6, and a student and parent must be interviewed by the council advisor. What happened is, over the years, the first year we had 29 students. There were 2 sophomores. Let's see what they're. 2 sophomores who entered the program. There were 15 seniors and 12 juniors. And the 2 sophomores who entered the program, unfortunately, neither one of those students graduated. You really have to be able to do college level work to be successful in the program. And this is kind of a bar graph showing the enrollment over the 4 years. You know, if you look at the top of there, each year, most of the students in the program were seniors. So in 2018, there were 23 students, there were 29 students. Out of those 29 students, there were 15 seniors, 12 juniors, and 2 sophomores. The ratio of females to male was 23-6. Then in 2019-20, there were 33 students in the program. There were 20 seniors and 13 juniors, and there were 24 females and 9 males. And then in 2020-21, there again were 33 students in the program. We have more parity between males and females. There were 18 females and 15 males for the cohort 2021. And then this year, we have 36 students. And out of those 36 students, there are 21 seniors and 21 seniors and 15 juniors. There are 22 females and 14 males, 2022. Now, to give you a little bit of kind of what happens, and this is the ethnic breakdown. Most of the students in the program are white, followed by Asian and Asian Indians. Each year we've had, except this year, we've had at least like one African-American student. I think in, 1921, we had like 2. We haven't had an American Indian, a Filipino student, or a Pacific Islander student that has been in the program, but all of the other ethnic groups have been represented in the program. In 2018-19, all 15 seniors graduated. 2 students graduated at the end of the fall quarter. There was one young student who started the school year as a high school senior at Los Altos High School in the fall quarter of 2018. The spring quarter of 2019, she was a freshman at Brigham Young University, because Brigham Young does admit students, throughout the year. So I thought that was kind of interesting that you start the year as a high school student, you end the year as a college student. And 9 of the 15 seniors who were accepted and planned to attend the following four-year college: Vassar, UC Davis, University of Oregon, George Washington, Lebanese American University, University of Washington, UC Irvine, Reed College in Oregon, and Brigham Young. And 5 students continued their studies at Foothill. And 1 student graduated, and I tried to communicate with her to find out her plans, but she never responded. In 2019-20, there were 20 seniors who graduated. 1 student took an additional quarter and graduated in December of 2020. 2 juniors graduated early. 10 of the 22 graduates were accepted and planned to attend the following university. University of Hartford, I see a spelling error there, in Connecticut. University of Hawaii at Manoa, University of Oxford in England, Boston University, University of Washington, UCLA, University of Massachusetts in Boston, UC Davis, and UC Santa Cruz. And then in 2021, we had 13 of 18 seniors graduating. 5 students did not graduate in 2021. 2 of the non-graduates entered the program as sophomores, and I mentioned that earlier. 1 student didn't graduate because they had a very serious illness and had been struggling for a couple of years, and decided, kind of had a setback during the winter quarter and decided, even though the student had already started the college application process, that he would get the GED and still plan on trying to get into a four-year college, but I'm not sure he's able to make it. Each year we have students with a 504 plan. We also have students with the IEP. 3 juniors graduated early. One of the juniors got accepted to Hunter's College. Another one of the juniors got accepted to New York University. And the other student enrolled at Foothill and planned to transfer in the fall of 2022. Now, in the College Now program, you don't see the same percentage of students going to a four-year college. And one of the reasons is that some of the students decide that, like the ones that wanted to graduate early, we've had a couple of students who wanted to graduate early because there are transfer programs with UC, and there's also a transfer program with the University of San Francisco in Humanities. So students decide, and then of course there's free tuition. There's a college promise program at Foothill where the first 2 years are free. So a student will graduate early, go back to Foothill for an additional year, and then transfer. I think you know that UC Berkeley and UC LA and UC San Diego are the most selective of the 9 UCs. I've had several students who really had their heart set on UCLA. So graduated early, returned to Foothill for 1 additional year, applied in, it's a transfer, I think you have to apply in November or December, transfer student. If you apply as a transfer student to UCLA and you're a member of the Honors Institute at Foothill, your chances of getting into UCLA rises from 14 to 17% of freshman applicants to 80% of transfer applicants to UCLA. So what we're seeing is a pattern where some students are elected to transfer because number one, they're helping their parents out by saving at least 2 years of tuition. I wish this program had been around when my boys went to school. And it's with the transfer option guarantee, transfer guarantee program. This is with 6 of the UCs. It's all of the UCs except Berkeley, UCLA, and San Diego. You do 2 years as a transfer student, maintain a 3.4. Admissions to either one of the UCs is guaranteed. So we have a number of students who are taking advantage of that.
Do they call that tagging? Somebody's called tagging. You can tag, right?
Tag, yeah.
Tag, right?
Yeah. Transfer admissions guaranteed.
Okay.
Yeah. 11 of the 18 seniors were accepted and planned to attend the following universities in the class of 21: Colorado State, UC Davis. There's one student who initially was going to go, well, first he started off, he was going to try to get into West Point. Then he got accepted to Texas Tech, but he really wanted to go to USC. So he applied to Franklin University in Switzerland. Apparently they have a relationship. So his first year, he's going to go to Franklin University in Switzerland. And then in the fall of 2022, he's going to transfer to USC. We had 3 students got accepted to New York University, American University, Arizona State, University of Maryland, College Park, UC Merced. And this year we had 1 student got accepted to MIT. And I think you know how selective that is. The program has served about 95 students since the start. Back in 2018, there are 36 students are presently enrolled, bringing the total to 131. Los Altos High has the highest enrollment of the 4 schools, Mountain View Los Altos schools, and also Palo Alto. We accept about 40 students a year. But for whatever reason, we have anywhere from 2 to 9 students who get accepted, but they decide they don't want to attend. And some juniors, I can't read that, are entering the program to graduate early and transfer to the college of their choice. There were 4 juniors in cohort 2019-20 and 3 juniors in cohort 2021. So I'll just stop there and maybe answer some of your questions if you have any.
So of the students that enroll in juniors, do you have any of them that don't continue on to their senior year there, or is it like 100%?
Oh, no, the first year of 2018, we had a junior student who went back to Los Altos for a senior year. And that was because she was struggling. She was academically talented, but she had a habit of not turning her homework in on time. And then in this last year, a number of students entered the program because college courses are treated like honors and AP courses. You get weighted grading. So if you take English 1A and you get an A, you basically get 5 units of A, and that raises your grade point average. So this year, for the class of 22, there were 2 students in Los Altos who went back. So we usually have 1 or 2 students who go back each year.
And then it seems like you know a whole bunch about every one of these students. So I was wondering what your position is as far as the students that are enrolled. Do you check up on them? I mean, you're saying that they're pretty much independent on their own, but obviously you know a lot about what's happening with the students.
Well, first of all, I'm on campus at least 1 day a week. Students can always get in touch with me by phone or email. And I meet with them if they need to meet with me at any time they want to. And usually when we first started the program, we couldn't get access to the classes that they were taking, so we really couldn't monitor them. So now we work that out with Foothill so that probably about every 3 or 4 weeks, we get a schedule of the students and the classes that they're enrolled. So we're able to at least monitor how many units that they are taking, or if they're still enrolled in the required number of units, which is at least 10 per quarter. But so far, there have been very few students that I've had to really check on. I mean, these students are independent learners. The students entering the program, probably the average non-weighted grade point average is like 3.6.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I know with distance learning and everything, the comprehensive high school students locally and some of the middle college students too have had some wellness struggles and mental health struggles, anxiety and stuff having to do with learning. Do you see that much in the college now population?
We certainly had 2 students who struggle with some mental and emotional issues. Like one student basically refused to leave the house, and another student, though actually there were 2 of them that refused to leave the home, and one of the students is back for her 5th year, and because of the new law, she's still trying to graduate. She's one of the 5 that didn't graduate. So yeah, we had a couple of students that had some mental health issues.
And so how do you handle that in terms of, do you refer them to our counselors on our campuses, or?
Well, the student from the Palo Alto district had a section 504. So we had a section 504 meeting, and her counselor and psychiatrist attended that meeting, and we revised the plan. So she was getting ongoing counseling and therapy, the student Palo Alto. the one from our district, who was a transfer student in the district, I mostly worked through the parents, but she didn't have a 504 plan or IEP, and they arranged some counseling on their own, and so she actually got better. So, but she just still didn't graduate, but she's back at Foothill now, continuing her education. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one, I have to say, I'm so happy when I read the presentation yesterday and hear it today of how well the program is going. I recall the first time we had this presentation a few years ago. I have to admit, I had my concerns about whether this program was going to succeed or not. But I'm very happy to see how well it's doing. So thank you very much for sticking with it and and making it as successful as it is. It's just amazing. It's a great gift that we have in our district for our students that we have this program. So and how successful it is. So thank you very much for that. I wasn't sure, maybe that was the question you answered. What was the average GPA of the students that we have going into the program? I know the minimum is 2.6 to get in, but
Yeah, the average GPA is about 3.6.
3.6 that's the students going in. So right, okay.
Yeah, we have 3 students this year that have 4.0s.
That are going in. Okay.
Unweighted.
So all right, unweighted, right. And so it seems like even though the minimum is 2.6. Majority of students that are choosing to go in are academically pretty strong, or at least they're showing it to be that way.
Like the student who got accepted to MIT, is junior year, took 5 AP classes, and he's just brilliant academically. We have a student this year who is a junior. I think he went on option B, and so he was taking most of his classes at Foothill. So as a sophomore, he took calculus, math 1A, which is math 1A1. He's already finished math 1A, math 1B, and math 1C at Foothill. And I think he might have finished 1D, and he's in math 22, which is discrete mathematics. So I mean, he's just skilled academically.
I do have one other quick question, and that is when they're applying and they're supposed to get letters of recommendation, who do they get those from, or what kind? I mean, they get them from people where they had a job, or from teachers at the high school they're from, or where did they get those?
To get into the program?
Yeah.
To get into the program, the recommendations come from teachers, counselors, or administrators.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that question up, because one of the issues that we had to overcome, juniors that are in the program, usually if they apply to college, the colleges want a recommendation from their junior year. So they have to get a recommendation from a Foothill College instructor. And so we use the Navion system. And of course, we could not add all of the Foothill instructors to our Navion system. So we had to create a mechanism so that the Foothill and college instructors could write recommendations. So what they do, they write the recommendation, they send them to me, and then I load them in Navion. So that was one of the issues that we had to work out. So, anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you very much. Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, and your time with these students.
Might have time to watch FBI on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so item 17.3 is our California dashboard, local education agency indicators, and Dr. Meyer are straight to the spot.
What you
I got
have
this.
before you are the 5 indicators that are required as part of our California dashboard. They include basic services, which includes certainly making sure we have staffing and facilities. They also include implementation of our academic standards, parent engagement and those strategies, school climate, and access to a broad course of study, which is our course of study document. And what we are recommending is approval of the California dashboard indicators as included in the packet.
Questions or comments? I sent mine ahead of time and got things back. Thank you, Terry, very much. So go ahead. No, it's fine.
I was gonna say some of the date taken for
Yeah.
correcting the pages. I just have a question. And then I just have partnership, parent partnership task force on page 98. Could you explain a little bit more about that? Are we hiring someone to do that, or do we?
Yes, absolutely. Our community outreach specialist, Michelle Bissonette, will be creating a group that will tap into current parent groups that exist, and it will be modeled after the current staff partnership meeting that we have. And the purpose is similar: to discuss things that are going on, to gather feedback, and to use the parent leaders as a way to both receive feedback and share information.
Okay, yeah, so I did read that there's parent partnership council, but there's also a parent partnership counselor.
Okay.
Oh,
So that's on page 98, it's right at the bottom and right from.
So it should be council.
Oh, is that council?
Yeah, so
Oh.
I'll do a one over on that one. And I
Okay.
want to double check if we're calling it parent partnership or parent advisory.
Yes, I
Yeah.
understand it's parent partnership.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, yeah, because on 97, it had parent partnership council, and it said counselor, and I'm like, I didn't know we
Oh,
were
okay.
hiring a counselor.
No, thank you, Debbie.
and pages 9 and 11 just have the dates flipped to the 21st instead of the 12th.
Yeah, otherwise, I think there's a lot of really good information. And I think, it's nice to put together. And
Yep.
Yeah, certainly would appreciate it. Yeah.
Else?
And we're going to include it at that presentation.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, some of it, that it'll be our district indicators, right?
Right.
At the November study session. Okay, so I would take a motion, then this one is action.
I move to approve the California dashboard LEA indicators.
Okay, so I have a motion from Debbie and a second from Catherine that we approve the California dashboard LEA indicators as presented. Ava, how would you like to vote?
Approve.
Thank you. And Riley? Thank you. Back to the board. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Terry, very much to you and your team for pulling this together.
Thank you. And I'll pass it on to my team.
Okay, so item 17.4 is a first reading of revisions to various policies that we must have updated. So it's a lot of them pertain to sexual harassment practices within the district, and more specifically anti-sexual harassment practices within the district. To you or to Terry?
To Terry, but I would like to thank the policy committee for reviewing and prior to first read. And this is, as stated, some housekeeping, but also alignment with new guidance, and so to keep us up to date. So Terry, I don't know if you have anything else.
Just a couple little details. So in 2020 was when the changes were made. That included a new definition that included only on campus, victim needed to be attending the school or the program when the complaint was made. The investigator for Title IX could not make the determination of the outcome of the case, and just a few other pieces. And at that time, districts were reached out to, suggesting that they revise their policies, and in our case, as well as many other districts, implement a specific Title IX sexual harassment complaint procedures. And William Blair, who I want to give all the credit for this for, worked very diligently with our legal Chelsea Tibbs, excuse me, on revising the current documents that are tracked, as well as putting together the Title IX cases.
I just have one question. So I noticed on a lot of them where we used to have a specific name associated, and some of them were actually like Eric's name.
Right, I know there were some really
But
old
now
ones,
we
right?
changed it to title.is@mbla.net. Is it still one person that's going to be heading it up, or is it now? I mean, I understand.
So it's a yes and. I am the Title IX coordinator unless it's specifically personnel to personnel. And then in that case, it goes to personnel and Layla will support our HR. But for sexual harassment, the complaint procedures, the Title IX, all of that will go onto to me. But we use the Title IX at mbla.net as a means of folks being able to easily reach out on a known email to file a concern or share a concern if they choose not to go to a teacher or administrator.
Okay. Yeah, I thought maybe you were doing that just so that you didn't have to change the document every time.
That would be wise as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to believe that, whatever, but thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I actually like that, to change it to Title IX, because it is keeping our policy accurate no matter who's in that position, but it also is, somebody doesn't have to look up who's doing that now. They just know that it's Title IX and it's
Correct, and that's a direction a lot of districts were going towards, and so very supportive.
For logistics, it's very helpful because in email, you can find everything in one place as well. And it's so important, we don't want to lose any information.
yeah, we're doing that for a lot of other things too, like we're doing that with COVID, stuff like that. And you have, and then as we reorganize administratively under that, it doesn't matter because they know how to get for that issue.
Okay, so that's right, yeah, so this is the first read, it'll come back on consent at the next meeting for the second read, and it'll get approved out of consent.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so calendar events, Dr. Meyer covered a few in your superintendent's update. Anybody else want to toss anything out? Okay. Communications correspondence. I did receive the same reminder that I'm sure Mike and Nellie received from county saying, be sure to approve your LCAP and budget properly by doing the public hearing. It was a reminder letter that all of the districts got, but it happened to come to board president. So that was in my little bundle from Debbie this week. Future board meetings or reports. We do have a study session on November 8th on all of our fun district data. Okay, and then the next meeting is October 25th. So we'll see everybody then. Okay, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion, a second from Catherine and Debbie to end the meeting at 9:22. Riley, how would you like to vote?
I agree.
Ava? I agree. Thank you. I'm back to the board. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned.